Hi everyone, and welcome back to yet a whole other video. Hope you guys have been well. It is spooky season and I kind of wanted to go back to a true crime or maybe conspiracy theory video, but I decided to go with a true crime. And I learned about this case not too long ago and it shook my world. And I feel like I should warn you guys, this video is going to get very disturbing and gruesome. If you don't have the stomach for that, just be careful if you want to continue. But in this case, we will be talking about Las Poquianchis. Las Poquianchis were some of the most dangerous and cold-hearted, greedy serial killers in Latin America. At first glance, they look like average religious women. Las Poquianchis were 4 sisters who included Delfina, Carmen, Maria de Jesus, and Maria Luisa Gonzalez Valenzuela. They were born in El Salto in the state of Jalisco in Mexico. And just like many serial killers, the sisters came from a rough, troubled past. Their mother was extremely religious, pushed religion on them. Their father was very violent. He was an alcoholic. He was very rough with them. Their father worked as kind of a security policeman type of person. He worked during the night and he had a lot of control over their town. They got so bad that Carmen escaped with her boyfriend, who was much older than her. When her father found her, he beat her and incarcerated her. A couple days had passed and their dad killed a man. So he decided he wanted to leave. He wanted to escape. So he did just abandon his daughters and his wife. And he apparently forgot that he left Carmen in jail. So after a few months of her being in jail, she decided that she was going to escape with one of the prisoners that she befriended. So in order to avoid any connection with their father, they decided to change their last name to just Gonzalez instead of Gonzalez Valenzuela. The Gonzalez sisters did have a job. They worked at a textile company which paid them very poorly. So Carmen decided that she was going to leave with the boyfriend that she had at the time. And they opened up a bar. And at first it was very successful. They had a lot of clients. But her boyfriend just kept spending money. So eventually they just had to shut down the place. But Carmen had a few savings, and with that money she opened up a liquor store and she goes back home. Time had passed and their parents died. So when their mama dies, she leaves a small inheritance, and this is where it all starts. So Delfina decides to open a brothel in her hometown, and it turned out to be very successful. The alcohol was provided by the store that Carmen owned, and Maria Luisa, the youngest of the sisters, is helping at the register. So for the people that don't know, brothels do provide prostitution service, and prostitution was illegal in their home state. The justice system in their state was very weak, so it was very easy to bribe the police officers, and sometimes they didn't have to bribe for permissions or anything because politicians and all the bigwigs were attending as well. So the place is so successful that Delfina decides to ask Carmen for accounting assistance, and it was Carmen that convinces Delfina to legalize her company, her business, so they can spread. There was a fair going on in San Juan de los Lagos, and if you guys have seen my last videos, you heard me mention San Juan de los Lagos a lot. So they decided to open 2 more locations in this fair while it's going on, and they decided to name it Guadalajara de Noche. So the sisters get permission from the mayor himself to open up these brothels with the condition that he would get some from Delfina. And they bribed the police, and they offered more money or commission to other people that they needed to have connections with. But how did they get these girls? So the sisters would go to nearby towns and ask for girls that wanted to work cleaning houses, and they would get paid well. So they got a lot of girls with those lies. Sometimes the people would already know who the sisters were. So in some cases, parents would offer their daughters up for money, but sometimes they would kidnap the girls. And the sisters did prefer the girls that were in between the ages of 12 and 15. So the way they prepare the girls for work was very disturbing. They would bathe the girls in freezing water, and because a lot of them were virgins, they would let them get raped by their employees and sometimes even Delfina's own son. And after that, they were automatically pushed to work. Because the girls had lost all their freedom and they were not to be let out in any case, they would buy everything they needed from the Gonzalez sisters. Anything from food to makeup to the clothes to shampoo, anything they would buy from the sisters, they would have to pay it back, obligating the girls to work more to pay off their debt. Maria Elisa, like I said, the youngest of the sisters, she worked with the sisters for 10 years. Once she collected 39,000 pesos, she decided she was gonna leave, and she did. She had little to no connection with what was happening to the girls. But when the fair ends in San Juan de los Lagos, they shut down their 2 businesses that they had there, and they move it to San Francisco del Rincon in the state of Guanajuato. Prostitution facilities in this state were legal at the time, so it was much easier for them to open bordellos and brothels. And they bought this huge home-styled location that had a lot of rooms in which the prostitutes could interact with the client. A lot of rooms had beds and a lot of rooms just had chairs. But during all this, the Gonzalez sisters kept a very religious mindset. They had peepholes all around the location so they could spy on the girls, make sure they were not committing no sinful act, make sure they were not doing no specific sex position, no lesbianism, and if they did any of that, they would get brutally tortured. So Maria de Jesus, one of the 4 sisters, during all that, she went to León, Guanajuato. You guys have seen León, Guanajuato in my videos if you watched my Mexico videos. Maria de Jesus was in Guanajuato and she met a lady that she was just amazed by. Loved the way she dressed, loved the way she acted. She just looked elegant to her. And the lady also had a brothel in León. And when Maria de Jesus went to see the brothel, she was blown away. It was nothing compared to her sister's locations. The place was so elegant and just aesthetically pleasing. And the location in which the woman had her brothel was owned by a man nicknamed El Poquianchis. So she decided that she was also gonna open up a bordello. So she asked her sisters to send her some girls to help her with the opening of it. So she was also looking for a home-styled place which had a lot of rooms. And she found a house which ended up also being owned by El Poquianchis. So she bought the house and she made it a bordello. And she decided to name the house La Barca de Oro. But because El Poquianchis was so popular among the people, they never called it La Barca de Oro. They always called it El Bar del Poquianchis. It ended up being very successful. The opening day was filled with all types of men, poor men, rich men, politicians, like all types of people, including religious figures, which used the money from the church to go to the bordello. So many of the girls were extremely sick. I mean, who knows what type of disease they were carrying after being forced to be with all these men. They were also malnourished. So in order to keep the clients happy, the sisters went to doctors and asked for health cards. They agreed, the doctors agreed, but in order to get the health card, they were to engage in sexual actions with them. Now, according to the sisters, their bad luck started when they got 2 girls that were from the United States, and these girls were very pretty according to them. The clients often requested their services, and the girls did engage in lesbianism, and according to the sisters, that's when it all went bad because they performed a sinful action. So time after that, the government of León, Guanajuato changes, so there are new people in positions that were carried by people that had connections with Las Poquianchis, and laws start to change, making brothels, bordellos, and prostitution illegal. So they are forced to completely shut down the bordellos that they had in León. So Maria de Jesus decided to move the girls to Lagos de Moreno, in their location that they had in Jalisco, their home state. And even though they were losing very little money and everything was basically coming back to them, they were starting to lose money, lose clients, and soon food became hard to get. They were barely feeding the girls. Sometimes they got fed beans with 5 tortillas a day. And eventually somebody turns to the sisters and tells them that they would get much more money if they turned to Satanism, which opened up a whole new world of cruelty. They started performing these crazy, degrading rituals. The sisters would draw the star with 5 points, and they would stand naked around the star. They would make the girls also stand naked around the star. And they started killing animals and rubbing their blood all over them, all over the girls. In some instances, they would let a man rape one of the girls in front of them and in front of all the other girls. In other instances, they would force the girls to engage in zoophilic acts. And if you don't know what that is, look it up. I'm not gonna explain it. And in other cases, they would put one of the girls in a room with an animal and let them be attacked by the animal. And it was around that time where Delfina's son was actually killed by a cop. It happened at a bar that was near the bordello, and the cops thought that it happened at the bordello, so they had to close the place down because of that and because of the illegal activity that was going on. And this opens a whole new other side of Delfina. She gets a few men and orders that all the cops involved in his death to be killed. And in order to avoid all that, they moved the girls to a small farm that Delfina owned. And that was when they lost a whole bunch of employees, so it was only a few guys and the sisters that had control over all the girls. And it was there that one of the girls manages to escape, and she goes all the way to the city, all the way to León. Luckily, she finds cops that were not helping the sisters. It was then that the whole thing is shut down. They find the sisters, they find the girls, and they let them free. And they also found a lot of deceased young ladies. It was 91 bodies that were found. It says they have killed more than 150 young ladies and babies. But Las Poquianchis never killed anybody themselves. One of the men was in charge of looking over the girls, getting what they needed, ordering this or ordering that, or ordering them to be killed. But from there, they did have a lot of people that tortured and killed the girls. Now, what were the reasons for killing the girls? There were many. The main one being that they were too old. When the girls turned 25, they were considered too old, and most of them were killed. And if they were left alive, they were the ones who were bringing the girls. The sisters ordered them to go to nearby towns or wherever they had to go to get new young girls to be forced into prostitution. And in many cases, they would help the sisters torture the rest of the girls. Of course, many girls got pregnant, so they were forced to abort, and the abortion was never performed in a authorized facility. It was always in their location, so it was not the professional way to do it. A lot of girls were harmed in the process, and they never healed, so they died. In many cases, the babies were born, but they would often be killed as soon as they were born. In other cases, they were sold to people that wanted to experiment. Many of the girls died of sickness. Many of the girls died from malnourishment. If any of the girls tried to escape, they would be beaten and tortured sometimes to the point where they died. If they were not smiling or pleasing the customer in any way, they would also be killed. And like I said, many of them died of just being tortured. Some of them would be tortured by putting hot irons on their skin, on their faces, on their bodies. A lot of them would be hit with wooden sticks. They also had this very big wooden stick which had nails coming off of it. They would hit the girls and the wounds were extremely open and would get infected, and it would get to the rest of their body, which killed them. And a lot of the bodies were not found. They say that they burned them so they would never be found. And I have also heard that they would cut off their meat and sell it by the kilo in the market. It's also mentioned that a lot of the bodies were sold for them to be experimented on. They were sold to doctors and other people. So of course, when Las Poquianchis were caught, they were imprisoned. So they were sentenced to only 40 years in prison. Delfina, the smartest of them all, died in jail. While some construction workers were working in her cell, they accidentally dropped a huge container of cement on her head. It is said that she was going crazy in her cell and she started having some symptoms of dementia. Carmen also died in jail of cancer. Maria de Jesus did complete her time in jail, and she actually married a prisoner that she met and was never seen again. And Maria Luisa, when she heard of everything that had been going on with her sisters, she came back in support and was also arrested. So even after they were imprisoned and the girls were set free, a lot of people said that the girls kept disappearing. This did happen also in León, and I have a lot of family in León. So I asked my dad, like, did his family or ever see anything or see them? He said like, yeah, my aunts actually got to see them. They would always travel in these fancier black cars. They would always be black. He mentioned that a lot of girls kept disappearing even after they were imprisoned. So it was said that the girls, the prostitutes themselves, kept the game going. A lot of people say it was that. A lot say it was the Las Poquianchis employees themselves, or maybe a copycat. But yeah, these sisters were something else. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Keep your minds open, and I will see you on my next one.